welcome to Life Extension Live. I'm Dr. Mike, and this is
Dr. Crystal.
Great to have you guys join us today. We're right in the middle of summer.
Yes,
it is hot, and that sun is beating down.
Yes, it is.
And we know at this time of the year, a lot of people are getting ready. School starting again soon, and so people are making the last-minute plans to be outside, in the doors, outside, not indoors. And so we thought, let's remind people of how important taking care of your skin is during this time.
Yes, and kind of clarifying the world of sunscreens, sunblocks,
all that,
sun clothing, sun hats,
SPFs, and and all this kind of. So we're going to get into all that today. Listen, this is important. By the way, real quick, having 5 or more sunburns in your life, that's not a lot. 5 or more sunburns doubles your risk of developing the worst skin cancer, melanoma.
Doubles your risk?
Doubles your risk. That's high. That's high.
Wow.
If you're a kid or you have kids, if they get one blistering sunburn, that doubles their risk for melanoma when they're adults.
Now, I did read that stat, and that was a little scary.
You have kids.
You have kids, and so you're thinking, now's the time you really have to protect them. So my kids, they don't like it, but
you got to do it. You got to do it. It's so funny, and I'm glad because I remember I grew up in Southern California. Remember I told you that, and we were at the beach all the time, and I don't think I ever put anything on.
Oh no!
Now, but I am more Mediterranean.
Okay.
I'm more, so I got probably less risk there, but I do protect myself now. Yeah.
Okay, good. And do you see a dermatologist and have them do the full
I just did that 2 years ago.
All right.
And I got a free check, and I don't have to go back. It was like another 2 or 3 years.
Mike.
Yeah. So everything's good there. But yeah, listen, we got to protect our skin. And so on today's show, let's get into this. On today's show, we're going to talk about why there's no more sunblocks out there. Yeah. Interesting. We're going to talk about ingredients you need to know. Why you look at me like that? And get into like the best way to apply, which ones to use, how to apply it. And of course, there's a lot of little nuggets we're going to talk about today in the show. So let's go and get started. And step number 1, we need to understand what UV is.
Yes. UVA, UVB, UVC. This is a nice graphic just to kind of show the difference between UVA, UVB, because there's, sunscreens protect against UVB or SPF.
Yeah.
Is protecting against UVB.
But there's A.
But then there's A.
Look how deep A goes in the skin.
Very dangerous, associated with skin cancer. Of course, they're all associated with some wrinkles, right? Oxidative damage in the skin. But skin sunburns, that's kind of that UVB radiation. And we'll talk about how you can protect yourself from all of this.
Yeah. And so
it's not that simple.
And we just wanted to start there. That's important. A lot of people don't understand there's different types of UVs. It's A and B that we need to focus on. Yeah. The most. Little old C gets stuck up in the cloud, so we don't have to worry about that guy. Right? Okay, so let's move on now. Interesting. If you go into where you can buy products like this anywhere nowadays, right? You will not find anything labeled sunblock anymore. Tell us what's going on there.
That's right. Well, in 2011, first short answer is there is no 100% way to block the sun.
Yeah.
So it was just a term that was misleading people to think I can put on sunblock and now I can go out and just sunbathe
and just do what I want to do. Yeah.
I don't have to worry about anything because it's blocking the sun. And now we know that is not the case. In 2011, the FDA announced manufacturers cannot label sunscreens as waterproof or sweatproof or identify their products as sunblocks because these claims overstate their effectiveness.
Yeah, and that just puts people at risk because, as you said, people they feel it's a fake confidence.
Exactly.
Right, and you're putting this stuff on, and now I can go out and I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And,
so what that means for you, it means that if you're out and you're looking on the shelves and you're trying to find something labeled as sunblock, you're not going to find it.
Yeah. It's funny. I was out with my sisters. We were playing pickleball. You ever played pickleball?
I've never played pickleball.
It's a lot of fun. And we were in the sun. We had our sunscreen on. And at some point, it was maybe 30 minutes, like, you guys, we should get in. Let's get out of the sun for take a break. And my one sister's like, well, I put my sunscreen on. I'm perfectly fine. And there's this there's this feeling people get
Yes.
that's not real. You got to get out of the sun once in a while, no matter what. So what happened then with the sunblocks? Those kind of ingredients are still available, but they're all under the umbrella of sunscreen now. And there's 2 types of sunscreens. We got a graph for that.
Yeah, so there's the chemical sunscreen and the physical sunscreen. So what the products formerly known as sunblock would be under that category for physical sunscreen.
Yeah. And they're physical because they're bouncing off the light.
Exactly. They kind of provide that physical barrier. And then the sunscreens are the chemical sunscreens, right?
We're going to be all over.
The chemical versions are the versions that's more absorbing that light.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of talk about some of the pros and cons later in the show.
Right. But at the end of the day, it's all sunscreens now, and it's either physical or chemical.
Right.
Okay. All right. What about SPF? That's another very confusing thing to people.
Yes.
There's a lot of, I think, misinformation about SPF.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really need the higher amount? Does SPF really do any good? I mean, there's just a lot of questions about it. So first of all, what SPF specifically, make sure I get this right? It's measuring how well it blocks UVB.
That's number 1.
Right.
UVB.
Not A.
Right.
UVB. Now, that doesn't mean your sunscreen doesn't block some A. That we'll get to that. But the number SPF is all about UVB. So I have one stat. Now, I know you have better stats. Dr. Crystal always has better stats, and that's great. Let me just use SPF 15.
Okay.
So SPF 15 simply means if you apply it correctly in the right amount, that's a big if. If you apply it right in the right amount, it means that you can stay out in the sun 15 times longer and not get a sunburn versus if you didn't have it.
Yes. So
I said that right?
I think that's right. It would take 15 times as much UVB exposure to develop the sunburn compared to not having that. So it's not 15 minutes.
It's not 15 minutes. It's
15
exposure.
times longer.
The exposure to UV.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Another way to look at it. This is how I like to look at it.
Her stats are better. Just forget what I just said.
So SPF 15 blocks 93% of UVB radiation, meaning 7% of that UVB.
15.
That's
50. Okay.
SPF. That's SPF 15.
Okay.
98%, so 7% still getting in.
Okay.
Then we move up to 30%. SPF 30 is blocking 97% of UVB.
That's better.
So yeah,
so only 3% is getting through. Okay.
And then you start looking at SPF 50, blocking 98%. SPF 100 blocks 99%.
Not 100%.
Not 100%. People think that. They're
There's
like,
no
I want
100%.
SPF 100.
No.
I have full coverage.
1% still gets in, and that 1%, who knows what that might cause. Yeah.
Yes. Now, Dr. Mike, I know in past lives, shows, we kind of said it doesn't, the percentage differences is
between,
not.
Yeah, we used to say, let's just say what we used to say. Yeah. 30 is enough. You're only getting another % or 2 protection from the 50. But when you look at the amount being blocked, give us that. It really does make a difference.
Right. So you may think, okay,
97 versus 98.
Versus 98, whatever. But if SPF 30 is letting 3% in and SPF 50 is letting 2% in, you're letting about 50%.
That's a 50% increase.
Yes. So
it does make sense.
It makes sense. Now, I think it makes sense for the people also who really have special health concerns where they have to protect themselves.
Yeah,
Maybe there are medications sun sensitivity.
But what about just, maybe some people just have more fair skin.
Right.
There's depending on your skin type, things you might be taking, absolutely a 50, even 100 might be appropriate.
So don't believe the hype when people say it's a complete waste of money.
It's not. It's
an individualized decision.
Yeah. So we're changing how we are saying this.
Right, but 30 is a good standard number
30 is,
now.
And
you have to say that.
I'm so glad. 30 is probably where most people need to be, and they're fine.
Right.
But for other people, 50 is probably better, even 100, maybe even better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your SPF 50. That was a lot.
But
Oh,
there's
no, we're
something
not
else.
done.
There's something else. What about the UVA?
I'm not worried about that. I am worried
So
about
how do you know that you're getting the protection from UVB and UVA?
Well, now you don't know that with SPF because that's just B.
Right. So the language that you look for is broad spectrum.
That includes ingredients that block UVA.
Yes, and that's why you'll see often on your labels, there's about 4, sometimes 5 different types of chemicals in there to make sure they get that broad spectrum.
Don't you find, I mean, you know, with kids, you're buying this stuff a lot more than I am probably. That's pretty consistent in the market now,
It
right?
really is at this point. And the FDA is making adjustments to that as well, where if your sun protection is 30 or more, there's some changes now where it has to be broad spectrum in order to be classified as SPF 30.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about sunscreens in general. Right? We already know. Hannah, can you do us a favor and put up that one graphic again about there you go.
Hannah.
So again, that's just, well, she's way over there. That's just a great thing to remember right there. No sunblocks anymore.
Right.
Just sunscreens. You got the physical, which used to be the sunblocks.
Right.
Right? They're just a barrier. And then you got the chemical sunscreens. Now, chemical sunscreens, probably the most common ingredient you're going to see is oxybenzone, avobenzone, very common. They work very well. They don't leave like any whitish hue stuff on you. However, because they're not penetrating as deep, they stay in that skin surface. Some skin allergies increase a little bit with those.
Right. So people who have sensitive skin.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your son.
Yeah. For my son, I stick to the physical sunscreens. And that's going to be usually the zinc oxide, the titanium dioxide. They are likely to leave the white hue, but they're less likely to cause the skin irritation. Yeah. So again, it kind of is a preference. You know, if you, and by the way, no matter what type you get, but especially if it's the chemical sunscreen, before you slap it all over your body, because you change brands, ingredients can change, you should always test. That's true.
Take a little bit, put it on the back of your hand, leave it there for 15, 20 minutes, and make sure there's no rash, no redness. Because the last thing you want to do is not test it, put something all over your body, and now you're like, you know, that's not good.
Yes.
So test is the key. There is one downside to the physical. Maybe less allergies is good. They do cause a little bit of maybe some DNA damage.
I know, Dr. Mike, but you compare that to the DNA damage from the sun, there's no comparison.
Yeah, so don't, I mean, even though you might see that, you might see some bloggers and stuff like that talk about that. The amount of damage is going to be insignificant compared to what the sun can do.
That's right.
Right, so we definitely want to protect our skin. Now, so those are your basic sunscreens. There are some other interesting nutrients out there that can help, and one is rosmarinic acid.
Yes, rosmarinic acid. It topically, if you see it in a formula, has been shown to boost its SPF by 41%. So that's a nice, nourishing, antioxidant nutrient. That's added to
a sunscreen.
Some sunscreen.
Boost up your SPF.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I
like that. So you can look for that.
Yeah. I didn't, but you can. What about rosmarinic acid? It can be taken orally as well. Do we get some of the same protection? Or do we know?
I haven't seen that.
Needs to be topical.
Right.
Okay. Now, one of my favorites, because I just like to say it, is polypodium. That's great. Leucotomus or leucotum, whatever. Polypodium is a cool desert fern that stays healthy and green even though it's being exposed to so much sunlight. So scientists were like, how is that plant doing that or that fern doing that? Turns out polypodium has some chemicals or compounds, natural compounds, that can actually block some of that UVB, UVA light.
Yeah. Here's my favorite.
What?
Carotenoids.
Wait.
Carrots, Peppers, sweet potatoes.
Hold on.
I know.
Dr. Crystal, she likes it so much. She gave so much to her daughter turned orange.
She did. The true story. I went to the doctor, and the doctor was just like,
She's
your
orange.
daughter's pretty orange. What do you better cut back on all of those carrots and sweet potatoes?
And you probably, because it was probably gradual, you probably didn't even notice. But it took
I'm
somebody else to be like,
we look back at the pictures now and we think, oh,
she
man,
was orange.
we sort of overdid it. But there is research that those antioxidants and those carotenoids can protect the skin.
Absolutely. That's it's good to eat that stuff. Just don't turn orange.
That beta carotene.
Yeah, just don't turn orange. Now, another big thing when it comes to sunscreens is spray versus creams, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sprays are all over the place now because it's convenient. It's easier. There's no doubt it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think before we get into this, at the end of the day, it's still a preference.
Well, and the sprays can reach some of those hard to reach places, like your back.
Yeah, because if you don't have that, then you got to get somebody else to do that, and that's just weird. Unless you know the person, that's really weird.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, stranger, can you go rub this on my back? Probably don't want to be doing that.
True.
So one of the things about sprays, and I learned this recently, doing all this research for this, is sprays are now using a form of a lot of these chemicals, right? With nanoparticles.
Yes, and you're seeing it even in some of the topical
We
ones.
learned that, because at first we thought it was just the sprays.
Yes.
Yeah, and nanoparticles, the debate's still out there if these are okay, whatever. But one thing about the sprays, if nanoparticles aren't great for you, is people inhale some of that stuff. And that's maybe the issue that some scientists are a little worried about. But then we find out you're getting it in the creams anyways, and that's penetrating your skin.
That's true.
So at the end of the day, it's still more important to protect your skin. So don't, nanoparticle or not.
You will find some.
Yeah.
This one. This form is, it says non-nano on the label. So you're starting to see some formulations. But if it says non-nano, you can expect to have the white hue.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, do you want to look good or do you want to have...
That's a question people are going to ask, right?
Right? Because that's the whole purpose of the nanoparticles, especially with those mineral sunscreens, is to make it where that white hue is not as evident.
It's not as evident, And if you are doing one that's a physical sunscreen and you get that white hue, what might happen is people might use less. To not quite, and now you're not really protecting yourself. So sprays are good. Better is probably the creams, right? That's probably the best, better way to go. But the best, you want to show them some of your stuff?
Yes. So I went in my closet. Oh, I still have hangers on it. That's okay. My sun protection shirts, and these are UPF factor. So when you're looking for them, the UPF factor, ultraviolet protection factor.
Okay.
And so the clothing, especially the darker ones, are really great because they're absorbing some of that light.
Yeah, and they're light. Their fabrics are light.
The fabric is very light.
They're breathable. Yeah.
They can breathe. This is one of my husband's fishing shirts. Oh. And so you can see. You can see, but these shirts are great.
They're very light.
Super lightweight.
Yeah, this is really light.
And they have like a little air pocket in the back.
Yeah, so you got to cool off a little bit.
So you can cool off, but these, and they, they're long sleeve, and you would think, man, you see people with these.
You're making a mess right now.
I am. That's okay.
She's making.
They have it, even the hats, and the hats. Find the hats where they have the piece hanging down to protect your neck, Dr. Mike.
Yeah.
And these are also SPF.
Hey, it's interesting point about that. There's body parts that people forget about. Melanomas pop up in the back of your neck.
That's true.
Bottom of your feet is often a common place where people finally identify a melanoma. So you got to get all over the place.
Very true.
You're going to use a cream. You got to get it on. As a matter of fact, since we're talking about creams, right? Oh wait, by the way, what is this again? UPF.
Ultraviolet protection factor.
A UPF of 15 in a study, right, was like way better than an SPF 15.
There was a study that compared creams to the clothing, and the clothing was more protective. And what we're finding is the creams, one, people don't apply them properly. Two, they're not using enough. Three, they're getting in the water and they're not reapplying. So when you look at all of that, it's just going with the shirts. It's just the best way.
Is the better way to go.
It's the best way.
Yeah. All right. So now we got to talk about applying this stuff. I was hoping we were going to do some shots.
No shots, Dr. Mike.
But this is important.
Yes.
Right? So if you're doing let's focus on the creams, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to do a full shot. Now, this is where maybe you and I are a little different. So you got to fill that cream up, right?
Whose oversized shot glasses?
It's Robson's. You have to fill that up. And I was taught that it's one shot for every major body part. You said it was just one shot for the whole body.
One shot for the whole body, but that's still a lot of cream.
Yeah, it's a lot. Most people are putting like a quarter size.
Oh, yeah.
And that's it. That's not enough. It's that shot glass size, and then reapplying is critical.
Right, and you can look on your labels. It will tell you how often you need to reapply. The general rule is about every 2 hours, but it all depends if you're swimming, if
sweating.
It's sweating, yes.
Which out in South Florida, everybody's sweating.
And that's why I like the shirts. You don't have to reapply.
That's right. There you go. You don't, yeah. Okay.
Right.
Good. Here's a common question.
Okay.
And we're going to wrap it up with this last question. Should I be wearing sunscreens every day, even if I'm not planning on being outside for a very long time?
Yes.
I knew you were going to say yes.
Of course.
Yeah. Every day. You got to remember, too, clouds that matter. UVB and UVA. Remember those UV lights? They come right through those clouds. So cloudy days, taking your dog for a walk.
Yes, if you're skiing.
That's a big one. Yeah.
People
all that reflection. Well, even if you're just out on a boat in the water.
That's true.
You'll get more. Those sun rays come off the water. And so make sure you're covering yourself, protecting yourself every day with either a physical sunscreen or a chemical sunscreen. Remember, no more sunblocks.
Or a sun protection shirt.
Yes,
and
thank you. And hats.
And sunglasses.
Okay, there we go. Everything. Just get all.
Oh, and protect your lips, too.
And protect your lips. You could take Dr. Crystal has kids because you definitely covered
Well, you know, here's one thing I would have to say. Many of us, if you're watching, you care about your health, right? You probably take nutrients, you're eating well, and you're negating all of that if you are getting all of this oxidative damage, oxidative stress from the sun. So protection is just important.
I think that's a great way to end the show today. We do have is it an article, right?
There's an article.
lifeextension.com/summertime, which goes through a lot of this information, but it goes into it deeper. There's other subtopics in that article. Again, lifeextension.com/summertime.
And before we end, let's just say hi. My dad is on.
Hi.
Thanks for watching. He's a big time sun protection guy.
Awesome.
So we're just happy to have you on, Dad.
And we want to thank everybody for watching. Now, some people watch this live. Some people watch it, throughout the next week. Whenever you do watch it, we appreciate your comments, your likes, and of course your shares to get this information out to as many people as we can. Don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. That's every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. So hit the interested button.
That's right.
And that way it'll tell you when we're about to go live so you never miss a show. That's every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. I'm Dr. Mike. That's
Dr. Crystal.
We'll see you next time.